So I know.
Okay.
Welcome to Smash Writing. I'm Paul. This is it's Anthony today.
I'm Anthony. How you doing?
There you go. Today, and over the next several weeks, we will be talking about the Mission Impossible series. This is 1 through 6 that we're going to be talking about. Data Reckoning Part 1 and Data Reckoning Part 2 will be down the road. Obviously, we'll rank these in the near future as well once we kind of see if this series is actually going to be over with Data Reckoning or Data Reckoning Part 2, or if they're going to continue on the series. It's been kind of going both ways. Usually, when they do Part 1s and 2s of a final story, that it is true, it's the final story, but Tom Cruise recently came out and was like, I don't think I'm going to make Part 8 the final of the story of Ethan Hunt, even though this series has been going on since '96. With that being said, that's where we go back to. We go back to 1996 when this film, Mission Impossible, was first released. First and foremost, talking about this series, talking about these films, I didn't I didn't start watching these films until I came up with the idea to review the films. I never watched them before, despite the fact that I bought the box set that went all the way up to Rogue Nation. I don't think it included Fallout. I might have to look. But let's start talking about the one that started all. 1996, Mission Impossible, starring Tom Cruise as the agent Ethan Hunt, John Voight as Jim Phelps, his mentor and team leader at one point. So let's get into talking about the plot right off the bat here. So the movie starts with basically they're already on a mission. They solve that quick mission. Which is obviously just a filler to kind of introduce you to the teams that would be going on. But then there's a new mission that Ethan Hunt and his team accepts, and it brings on Jim Phillips, which is revealed to be Ethan Hunt's mentor and previous team leader. So Jim Phelps is the team leader for this current mission. Well, they start their mission and suddenly things are going a little bit weird. And this is where Ethan Hunt's catching on that he sees other people that are behaving like agents. And, it dawns on him that something else is going on, but he doesn't know what is going on. So, he continues on with the mission, but suddenly members of his team starts to die. He was just a cameo, but one of the minor stars was Emilio Estevez, who served as kind of like a security tech for the team, to where he handled all the securities and moved them around to allow the team to slide into place. I think he's the first one that dies because he's in an elevator shaft, and all of a sudden the codes that he's using gets to kind of override, and then he gets stabbed by the elevator shaft and all that. Jim Phelps, aka team leader, he gets shot, and then one supposedly dies in a car. And the final one actually gets stabbed when she's kind of catching on to things too. So, Ethan Hunt is now almost labeled as prime suspect number 1 because the mission goes wrong. And we see that when they accept the missions, they accept the consequences for their actions and if something goes wrong. Which I think throughout the series is a nice touch, because it's like, okay, if you choose to accept, do I want to accept this mission? Blah, 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 blah. Okay, I'll accept it. So, then, here we go. So, he learns, or he gets another mission to where there is a mole, and they're selling the secrets. There is a mole within the MIF, and they're selling the secrets off, and the director and everybody wants to find the mole. Now, slowly, evidence points to Ethan Hunt, so which puts Hunt on the run, and so forth. Well, so he gets on the run, and as he's running and trying to figure out why he's getting framed or getting set up, he realizes Jim Phelps' wife is still alive, and now she's backtracking on her story that she jumped out of the car in time. She doesn't understand how everybody else's did. She's all upset that her husband's did. But yes, she starts to flirt with Tom. Not Tom. She starts to flirt with Ethan Hunt. Which, and I'm like, dude, I get that, he's trying to play the sexy boy, but, like, come on. You gotta sell this issue to me that, her husband just died, a mission gone wrong, and she's over there flirting with him. So instantly, in my eyes, that puts the first red flag up in the whole story arc of what's going on. And I looked at it as like, okay, I find that a bit suspicious that she's oh so flirty. Now I get it, maybe it was a loveless marriage, but she showed, I want to say, like sorrow that her husband's gone. But then she turns around and starts to try to mess around with Ethan. That's a red flag. That's telling me that this spy thriller is giving too much away, and giving that Jim Phelps is not dead and he might be the mole. So you see that first red flag. So Anthony, Ethan starts to put together and he uses the Bible because John, he notices the Bible in Ukraine where this is all taking place at, and he finds it a bit weird because it's stamped at a Chicago hotel.
Yes.
So instantly, that's when you get the idea that Jim Phelps might be kind of involved in being the mole. What are some things up to this point that you enjoyed about like watching that?
I enjoyed just the swiftness, like when they had the fight scenes and things like that.
Okay.
And then, like I said, like when they they framed them. They tried to make them go against, like when all the crew died off, they wanted to make him like the criminal.
Right.
So what happened is, like I said, when they got a hold of the Bible, he found that Job was like the code, and that kind of helped them through the situation where they were fighting, where they were framing him.
Now, after that part, Ethan knows that he has to get a team together to basically continue his mission on finding the real mole and cleaning the air about him.
Right.
He brings in one of the people that he brings is Luther Stickle,
Yes.
played by Ving Rhames. This character to me had, and this is kind of like speaking like a hit of the game for us. This character started off as the second in command, but throughout the series, it kind of dies down. Now I don't know if that's because Ving's other filming schedules for other films to where his character kind of got watered down, but it started off good in this film. Mm-hmm. So then he also gets a pilot because they form with the team, which now the new team consists of Jim's wife, Luther, Ethan, Franz, which is the pilot.
Yes.
And the goal is to break into the CIA security vault. And in doing so, they know they have to go through every single little protocol. And if a hair of it is off, they're going to get caught. They're going to get arrested.
Right.
So they do it, and the patent scene, I think, of the series has always become, when Tom Cruise, when Fran is in the air vent and a rat's getting to him, and he lets go of his hold, and Ethan falls to the floor, but he lays flat, like that, so he doesn't trigger the floor sensors.
Right.
And he gets the list and everything else like that. And when he's climbing up, he gives Fran the disc. We later know that Ethan Hunt is actually good at tricking people, because he tricked Fran into thinking that he had 2 discs, which we saw that he did in fact have 2 discs, and he gave Fran the blank one, which he convinced him was the blank one, so he throws it in the trash. But in reality, it was the real disc.
Right, yeah.
And he told his team after, he's like, yeah, that really was it, and he gives his reasonings. So, Fran plays a role in it because he is actually in with Jim. Mm-hmm. And we see that because he serves as Jim's pilot on an epic train fight scene. Long story short, here we are, end of story. Ethan Hunt has cleared his name, all is forgiven, and the movie ends with Ethan getting ready to talk about accepting his next mission. And the movie ends there. So, now this is where we go back and we look at some of the things where the character Luther that I just mentioned, he started off with a good, he was disemboweled. He gets his status back by doing this mission, and it's nice. And you see that they start to form a partnership. John Voight as Jim Phelps. Mm-hmm. The thing about that is, I don't know, maybe I'm speaking hindsight from watching from watching Voight's movies, is that, and maybe it's my movie knowledge, you got a few big names in this film.
Yeah. John
obviously being a well-established one. And just by common sense, there's no way in hell that John, definitely in 96, would die within the first 25 minutes of the movie. Right. I just don't believe that.
Yeah.
So, having him fake his death, which we learn later in the film, kind of, having him die off, being a high-famed actor, having him die off, kind of put me at, there's something else involved with his character. And I said, I go back to the fact of it is that you have his Jim Phelps' wife, boo-hooing, but then trying to sleep with Ethan Hunt.
Yeah.
Realistically, and mind you, we're literally talking 5 hours into this whole thing that this all happened. So, I think for it being a 1996 film, I do think the action was on par. Now, it had a decent-sized budget. The budget was $80 million for 1996, and it grossed $400 and almost $60 million. So it was a good. It made a great amount of money, and definitely the budget went. I would probably have to say to the main actors in a couple of the scenes. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about some pros and some cons. Some things that you did like about, some things that you didn't like. What's your thoughts on what you liked about it?
Well, I liked a lot of the fight scenes were very swift. How they were talking and it made sense to what was going on in the movie.
Okay.
A lot of the things I didn't like first of all, the beginning of the movie, how Jim Phelps, John Voight, faked his death, because that it would throw me off.
Okay.
It would throw me off to figuring out, well, what happened? What's gonna happen?
Okay.
You know, but then the very end, I kind of understood what was going on
All right.
and how it had cleared Tom Cruise or Ethan Bunt's name, and
Gotcha.
yeah, so
So my overall, and we'll give our overall grades in a second. So some of the parts that I did like. I am a sucker for action that doesn't require a lot of CGI. Now, 1996 CGI wasn't really that big of a thing. It was like they were being used, but this was really stunts. And Tom Cruise as a person can probably rub a lot of people the wrong way,
yeah.
big time, with his Scientology, his abusive behaviors, and him getting away with it. But Tom Cruise as an actor, when he believes in a film, he goes all in, and I do kind of like that. He does a lot of his own stunts. So, you know, that's him throwing those fists. Those are him throwing those kicks. That's all him doing his stunts. So that is a pretty cool thing to see. The thing that the biggest negative I really have is the movie tries hard to be a spy thriller, but as much as they're trying to be a spy thriller, they're giving it away too. I think they wanted to be smarter than what they were. And I'm not saying that, you know, because sometimes when you do watch a film that gets real complicated, you know, it's twists and turns, layers and layers, it does get a little bit too much to follow. This one, you know, was like, I feel like this would be like, this is a spy film for, like, Spy Film 101.
Okay.
Like, you're not going to get a PhD out of this film, but you are going to get acceptance into college. And that's kind of where I feel like they were trying to be like a PhD level spy thriller, but then they can only give you, like, oh, here's your letter of intent to college or something. So I think they had to give, you know, the stars their time to shine. They had to give some good action to overcompensate for probably a more weaker plot.
Right.
So, as we end this first video, Anthony, give your overall grade and why.
I'm gonna give my overall grade as a 90%.
Okay.
Only reason why is because, like I said, is the beginning of the movie, I couldn't understand the death of Jim Phelps. But as the movie went on, I started to understand it a little bit more. I'm not, to be honest with you, I'm not an action movie guy, but I'm starting to watch these movies and starting to try to figure things out about the movies. So, like, even towards the end, I'm starting to figure out how they're bringing the scenes together. Not just the action fighting, but how it's all connecting.
Okay.
So I'm going to give that a 90% on this one.
Okay, I'm probably going to stick with the 90% as well. I do think killing Jim Phelps with the actor kind of gives it away. So I think, like I said, I think they were trying to be better than what they were, and then they had to use all their other points to overcompensate to get that back on track. So overall, I still think this is a 90% film as well. Until next time, when we review Mission Impossible 2, and the next film, I have mixed thoughts on the next film, as we're literally talking about it. So, until next time, bye-bye.